Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alexei, and today I have a special guest, Margarita Monet of Edge of Paradise. In our today's interview, we're going to be talking about latest album of Edge of Paradise, which is called Prophecy. The album was recorded by legendary sound engineer Mike Plotnikov and mixed and mastered by Jacob Hansen. It's a huge honor to have you on my YouTube channel today, Margarita. And let's start our interview. My first question is how you became a rock singer.
Not planned. I met Dave Gates when I moved to Los Angeles, and Dave had rock bands before, and we just wanted to create something and put all our time and energy into it. So it kind of molded into me becoming a rock singer. But yeah, I did not plan on it.
How you joined Edge of Paradise?
So when we got together and we wanted to create, something together, Edge of Paradise kind of came out of there. Like, I come from classical music background. Like, I lived in Moscow and I was in theater, and I was always a performer and a musician, and I really missed music because I moved to LA more for acting world. But I really missed piano and music, and when I met Dave and we started working on something, it kind of ignited that passion, and we came up with the name Edge of Paradise because, we formed the band in Los Angeles, and it's kind of, you kind of live on the edge of paradise here because, one wrong move and you're right off the edge. So it kind of fit the life here, and also we wanted a name to reflect something light and dark, something heavy and more melodic, which is more of our different backgrounds. But yeah, that's how the band started and the name came to be.
What helps you to keep your vocals in a good shape?
Well, I really like to be active. For me, voice is part of your entire body, and I grew up dancing, so I always like to go to the gym and keep in shape, because when I feel weak, my voice feels weak. And the songs they take a lot of energy out of me, so I always have to feel strong, especially on tour. But also I should be doing more warm-ups than I do. But I do, I always, when we go on tour, I always bring ginger with me. I bring all the teas and sometimes colloidal silver spray. A lot of people it's kind of, I don't want to say controversial product, but some people say it works, some people say it doesn't. But I found that if I start getting a sore throat, and on tour it's very easy to get sick, and that colloidal silver spray really helps to keep all the sickness away. So I managed to get through the tours pretty well, knock on wood. But yeah, I try to eat healthy. I don't drink. And that's a big part of taking care of your voice, is just taking care of your entire body.
How are your songs composed for Prophecy album?
So a lot of the times, this album was a little different because we added a new member, Doug Weiand. So it was the first album that he was also a part of. So some of the songs started with me and the piano, and I kind of arrange it, and it sounds more symphonic or more cinematic because it's just keyboards and some drum samples and my voice. Then, I send it to the band members, get feedback. Then, Dave and Doug, they add, this time, Doug, he added 8-string guitars, which added a whole new element to our music, because the 8-string added so much low end and so much more depth. So we had much more room to work with. So once we have some of these demo elements on the track, I go into the studio and I track the vocals, and then we start rebuilding the song Guitars get re-recorded, drums go first. Jamie, he really adds the structure and the heaviness and the groove with the drums. Then we do the guitars again. We add a lot of layers, bass. And I redo all the keyboards after everything has been recorded because the song really changes. So I have to make sure now the keyboards complement the guitars and the bass and not the other way around. But yeah, it's kind of the process. And some songs start with guitar riff ideas. So it just depends on the song. Some songs it was just me and the piano, like Hear Me. But the album itself, Prophecy, is probably one of our more heavier, more aggressive albums, just because we do have, a new element of 8-string guitars, and I feel like all of us evolved as musicians too, and you can hear it on the album.
Which microphones do you use for vocal recordings at the studio?
Oh man, I'm probably not the right one to ask because I try a lot of different ones, and I go to the studio with Mike Plotnikov, and I know we used a vintage Neumann microphone. It's a tube microphone. So my voice seems sometimes, especially when I hit higher notes, I don't want it to sound thin, so I need a microphone that can really add warmth to it to really capture all of the frequencies, so it's not just high end because it can be piercing. So for me, tube mics really work, like the old school ones, because they do add that warmth. But also the Shure, the SM57, the Shure microphone, that one works great, but I still prefer tube mic. It depends. Sometimes I go with different microphones for different songs. Depends on whether it's more aggressive or whether it's more, like, for example, the acoustic song Hear Me, I definitely want to have that warmth. Yeah.
So in this case, can you please give any tips on recording vocals at the studio? And since you have such a very beautiful and powerful voice, so in this case, how far or how close should you stand in front of the mic? And how much of a compression should you apply to your vocals while you are recording your vocals at the studio?
Yeah, it's a whole different thing recording, because I had to, this is our 6th album we recorded, so I had a lot of practice and I did a lot of, experiments. Like for me, what works is, well, of course, we do songs section by section. So we, like Mike, he would set different compressor levels. For example, if I am singing soft, it's going to be different settings than when I'm like really belting and doing like the really powerful parts. So the distance of the microphone doesn't make that much difference because the compressor settings are changing. But still, I think also I have a habit that when I'm singing softly, I tend to go a little closer to really, it's almost like I'm whispering in someone's ear. And then when I'm singing more powerful, I kind of need that space to, because I also do a lot with my body to really get the sound out. So I step away from the microphone a little bit to really get the space I need to, perform the parts. So it's now kind of a habit. And then, of course, there are parts where it goes from like really loud to really soft, really fast. So I do kind of stay here and then I come really close to the microphone. So it's almost like the microphone is like your instrument or another person there in the room with you that you really have to get comfortable interacting with. And I feel like it's also very personal. What I might do may not work for someone else, but generally, that's kind of the rule. You want to get more intimate when it's softer and then have a little more room when you're doing more of the aggressive, louder parts. Also, for me, for some reason, like the headphones, I got into this habit where I have to have one headphone off. For some reason, I hear myself better, or I need that space open. I can control my voice better, and that translated into live. I know it's probably not the best thing for me, but I like to have one of the in-ears out. Because it's so interesting, your resonance in your head, it just makes all the difference, because how you hear your voice in your ears is different than how, you hear it outside of yourself. So I think it takes a lot of trial and error, and it's very personal to everybody. So it's just, you have to try a lot of different things and see what works best for you.
Oh, your drums are recorded for Prophecy album by Edge of Paradise. And in this case, since you are working with Mike Plotnikov, maybe you know his approach on recording drums.
Yeah, so we, for the last, all the albums we record with Mike, the drums, it takes a whole day it takes hours to set them up. Mike is great with getting the drum sounds, but it's also his studio, the microphones he uses, the compressors, how he sets all the settings. So it's very personal to him. But we tend to, so Jamie, he would track all of the song at once, and we would do it maybe twice or 3 times. Depends on how prepared he is or how comfortable he is on that day, or on that song in particular, because some of the songs are, very different from each other. So he would do that, and then we would judge his performance by the energy overall, and we would pick the track based on the energy of, how you kind of just feel what works best for the song. And of course, he has the parts worked out ahead of the time. And then, he would come inside and we would all listen back, and Mike has a lot of input as well. Mike tends to like things a little more simpler, on the drum parts themselves, because if the part is a little simpler, if the track is more of like the epic anthem-like song, there's more room for the sound of the drums to kind of fill the space, and it makes it sound more epic, gives more room for other instruments as well. Sometimes we tend to, in metal, we like to fill things with like double kick or, really complex drum parts. And sometimes we would listen back and we're like, well, it actually takes away from the power because the sound is more compressed. So then we would make a decision to simplify it and have more of an open approach. So it just depends. That's why it's important to, all be in the studio and have that, listen to the songs after we track the actual drums to see what works best for the part. But yeah, and then so once we kind of agree on the track and agree on the part, and Jamie does the whole song to really get that energy. If some section of the song, is a little out of time or is a little not up to par, as they say, he would go and re-record the section. And then, sometimes we end up doing section by section too, because we're like, well, this could be better too, or this could be more powerful. But, honestly, on Prophecy, Jamie really brought his best, and it was like 2-3 takes, and then just redo some of the sections, and they were done.
How was bass sound created for Prophecy album by Edge of Paradise?
So for bass, so for us, a really big element in recording or production is we have Jacob Hansen in Denmark, and he is mixing the songs. So we send him all the tracks, and the main thing for us is making sure that all of the tracks, the signal is precise and clean, and the tracks are edited and how we want them to be. So, and he is the one that kind of makes the last decision of the sound. So sometimes he either reamps or he uses his plugins he likes. I honestly don't know the magic he does, but he makes it sound amazing. So whatever he does, I know he uses some of his own, like for example, especially for drums, Jacob has his own drum sound library. So he mixes our drum sounds that we send him and he blends his own sounds. So I think he does the same thing for bass. So when we record the bass, we actually, I think we use the plugin. We used to use amps for bass, but right now, because Jacob does reamp, the bass tracks anyway, we tend to use a plugin and just make sure that the performance is there and the signal is there. But, Mike, he has, all the amps you can imagine, like he has a wall of amps. So we tend to use Wizard amps. We use, Mesa Boogie, like especially Doug. He uses only the Mesa Boogie Mark series. So we tend to focus more on analog amps on guitars, and bass we kind of get away with the plugin, with digital plugins. Yeah.
How was Guitar Tone created for Prophecy album by Edge of Paradise?
Yeah, so guitars, that's a really big deal for us. We spend a lot of time on the tones, and it's a mix. So we would record like, Wizard and Mesa Boogie. We also used, he has so many amps, so sometimes we just go through different ones and see what tone we like best for the songs. We also, Mike has a lot of different pedals, so there's a lot of experimenting going on. We use a lot of wah pedal on some parts. So we do get DI tracks, and then we get the tone that we like, and then we layer. We have like quad guitars, so not just double of each part, but like quadruple guitar tones, and each track is a different amp. Well, maybe we do double with the same amp, and then we would layer another triple with a different amp, and then a quadruple with a different amp. And it really adds to the depth of the sound. And we send all of that to Jacob, but honestly, I don't know how much of that he uses. Sometimes we want you to use this sound. So he does when we ask him. But when we don't ask him, he blends. But he definitely uses the sounds that we send him. But he definitely uses the DIs as well, and he reamps it how he wants. And he also adds some digital, plugins. So he just has his own signature sound that he uses, that he knows works for our songs as well. And sometimes we would have to go back and forth because we're like, well, maybe for this we want a little more of that raw guitar sound. But we also have to keep in mind that we sent him so many keyboards, and he has to make sure that everything has clarity and everything complements each other and everything works together. And with the vocals, because I have a ton of vocal layers. It's not just one. I also double my voice. In the choruses, I quadruple my voice. And then we also have a lot of backing vocals. So he picks the layer that he wants to be in the forefront, and then he has to create a wall of sound with my backing vocals that complements the guitars and that nothing fights with each other. So it's a science. He's like a scientist of sound, and it's very interesting, the recording process. Takes a lot of trial and error as well.
Prophecy album was mixed and mastered by Jacob Hansen, and in this case, did you use any reference tracks for mixing and mastering? Or if you didn't, how did you explain to Mr. Hansen what kind of sound you were looking for?
So with Jacob, this was our fifth album together. Universe, The Unknown, Hologram. Oh, fourth album. He mixed some songs previously, but overall, he really knows us by now. That's why I don't even, sometimes bands like to try different people, but for me, I love to go where I know we already have a relationship, a system, an understanding, because sometimes a mix can really destroy a song, or sometimes it can, really amplify everything about the song. So I feel like with our first album together, we really got to know each other. Like with Universe, it took a lot of explaining, and especially with The Unknown, because on that album we had so many songs that are very kind of encapsulate us as a band. Like we had, The Unknown, which is a really cinematic and epic song. And then we have like Digital Paradise, which is almost like pop metal. And then, we have more of the aggressive, heavy songs, like the Prophecy. We told Jacob right away, we're like, we have a whole new element of 8-string guitars. We want to sound a little more aggressive, a little raw, but he understood what it meant in our context. I do remember that when we first started working with him, the reason we found him is we loved how Volbeat sounded. So we were like, we love Volbeat. Can you make us sound like that, but with our elements? Because, it is female fronted and we have more keyboards. It's a little more cinematic, but overall we want the power of Volbeat. So he understood, and of course he also works with Amaranth. And there's some similarities there with like more of like the electro sound of the songs. So I feel like he really had an understanding, and he also, it's also cool to have, because we really trust him. So having his signature on our songs was also very cool as well. And, we trusted him in that. And he's also very open. Like if he sends us a mix and we're like, well, we are envisioning a little more in this direction. So he takes feedback and he, sends you back what you are hearing as well. But the main thing is he always has that clarity. And when you have that base, it's easy to, when you have that foundation, it's easy to start to, change a little bit here and there and add a little more flavor wherever you want. But he's a master of having that clean foundation that you can really build on and have that power behind it and not losing that power of rock sound.
Thank you so much, Margarita, for such a wonderful interview. It was a huge pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for your very valuable and very knowledgeable answers to my questions. And thank you so much for your wonderful music, because now we are going through some hard times, and your music helps me a lot to continue my music journey, no matter what.
Thank you. And we're sending all the support to you. We love people of Russia, and I know all of us do. And we hope to play very, very soon. So just sending you all the support, and never stop. Especially, that's very important.